At 7:20 a.m. on the 4th of April, 2020, our angel is born, still. They place her on my chest and I lie with her in my arms. I close my eyes and I pretend that she's just sleeping too. Somehow I'm still hoping that any minute now she is going to wake up, but she doesn't. And then all at once it soaks in. There is no more denial. I feel an ache in my heart unlike anything else I have ever felt. I get 2 full hours with her for which I am so grateful. I cherish every single one of them. I kiss her head. I hold her hand on my heart. I admire her feet. I admire her toes. I squeeze her chubby legs. I think she would have been tall like her dad. I hold her little hands, trying to remember everything about her, trying to not forget. I brush through her hair, which I am so surprised to see that she has so much of. I touch her nose, I touch her lips, and we both agree she has my lips. I think she looks like me. I wonder whose eyes does she have, but I will never know. I'm sure they're perfect anyway. She is perfect. The doctor tells me that it's time to let her go. I protest, but eventually I give in. I know that our time has come to an end. I pull her close one last time and whisper to her ears how much I love her. They take her from me, and I fully, absolutely, and completely break down. My husband hugs me, calms me down, repeats and reminds to me all the things that we have to be grateful for. I nod, I cry, he cries. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To God we belong, and to him we return. Hi everyone. Today's video is going to be a lot more serious than the past videos I've uploaded in the past couple of weeks and months. This is a topic I've been wanting to do a video on for the longest time, and I think finally the time is right. I have not done a sit-down video in ages. They usually make me very anxious and very aware of myself. So today even I decided to use my vlog camera just so it can feel more like a conversation between us, because it's just a story that I want to share for many different reasons, but one of the main reasons to be hopefully that someone out there who has gone through the same, is going through the same, or unfortunately still yet to go through the same, can find some kind of hope and comfort that the sun will rise again and everything will be okay again. So I don't even know where to start, so I guess I'm just gonna go straight into it. Last year on the 4th of April 2020, I was 9 months pregnant and full term, and I went into natural labor, so I was not induced or anything. I was just out for a walk with my husband, and when we came back home after our long walk, we took a shower, we prayed, we were ready to go to bed, and my water broke. I thought that, you know, the way they do it in movies, that's never going to be the case in real life. Like, it's probably going to be like a little bit of water, but in my case, it was exactly like the movies. There was water everywhere, absolutely everywhere. And slowly, I started my contractions. So we were like, this is it. And we drove to the hospital. My pregnancy had been going well the entire time. I had checkups every single month regularly. My baby girl had never had any issues. Nothing was ever wrong with me. There were no indications for anything to be wrong. So we were very hopeful. I even have little clips on my phone till today that I've never shared, where I'm actually vlogging me in the car getting ready to go to the hospital and to start giving birth. And we're like, oh my God, it's happening. Until the point that we parked in front of the hospital. Haitham got me a wheelchair. Haitham, my husband, got me a wheelchair. I sat on it. We took all our stuff. We rolled in. We checked into the hospital, and even the people were there were so nice. They gave me chocolate and they're like, good luck. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Then they took me to a room where they take your vitals and they check for the baby's heartbeat. And there's a nurse there who's trying to check for the heartbeat, and then she calls for another nurse, and then she calls for another nurse, and suddenly there's 3 of them, but nobody's really saying anything, and I don't have any reason to suspect that anything is wrong. So that would be my number one thing that I want to talk about in this video, is that you never know what is going to be your next test. For me, I didn't even know the term stillbirth exists until it happened to me. This was something for me that happened to somebody else out there. It was never something that I considered that could happen to anyone I know, let alone myself. And that is a huge mistake, because any kind of test and trial can come to any one of us. But naively, it was just not something that I had ever thought about, not something that anyone had ever like raised awareness about that I knew of. And I feel that that is such a huge mistake, and that is something that I want to change, because it is something that we should talk about, because it happens to so many women around the world. And I was so shocked to find out the statistics when I looked more into it. So I'm laying there. I don't have any reason to suspect that anything is wrong until they call for a doctor, and the doctor takes quite a long time, and they're all standing there awkwardly, like no one's really saying anything. Until I see Haitham behind the curtain, and he's like, yay, and I'm looking at him and I'm like, I don't. So he starts to get a little bit worried. I start to get a little bit anxious, until they said the words that would ultimately change our life forever. And if you're someone who has heard these words, my heart goes out to you, and my prayers are with you, and I am so sorry. And those words are, I am so sorry to say, but your baby does not have a heartbeat. And I don't know how it has been like for other parents, but for me, in that initial moment of shock, I did not understand what it meant. I thought maybe it means that her heart stopped for a moment, and they're going to try to deliver her quickly through a C-section or something, and they're going to try to, you know, I'm not sure what's it called, like resuscitate her. I thought like it didn't register with me whatsoever that this is it. This is her life and death story, and this is it. So Haitham goes around, he tries to find out what's happening, and he comes back to me, and this is still my mindset that, okay, they're going to try to get her out really quickly, and they're going to save her, and it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. And he tells me, he sits down next to me, and he's like, Eileen, you're going to have to go through the whole process of labor, because you are in labor and you're 3 centimeters dilated. And that, to me, was the shocking wake-up call. I did not expect, and I was not ready, that I know my baby is underneath my skin, and my baby is dead, and there's nothing that anybody can do, and I'm going to have to sit through labor and do the entire thing knowing that, and just live with it. It seemed at the time, how am I ever going to survive this? How am I ever going to... But there's all these thoughts, because in the initial shock, I'm telling you, you don't still contemplate. You're still kind of like in survival mode. So they roll me up to the delivery room, and then the contractions start to get more and more intense, and it starts to get more and more real. And I beg my husband to tell them to put me under, because I cannot handle the pain. Because I think with mothers who are in natural labor, because that's what's happening with me. I went into natural labor. I dilated on my own. My water broke on its own. It was not induced in any way. So I think with mothers who go through this, you have that, you know, motivating factor that, okay, I'm going to get through this part, and then I'll hold her in my arms. But I didn't have that. I'm like, why do I have to go through this? Why? This is inhumane. Why would someone do this to me? Why, you know, all of those thoughts. And the contraction pain, and then Haitham sitting in the corner of the room not knowing what to do. He's thinking who to call, who to talk to. He's slowly starting to tell people what has happened. I was in so much pain, I wasn't even able to check my phone or check up on anybody until I got the epidural. When I got the epidural, I was suddenly able to think clearly. And when I was able to think clearly, it was like a blessing and a curse at the same time, because suddenly everything started to feel real. And throughout my entire adult life, I was made to feel like the pushing part is the worst part of labor. You know, I always thought that, you know, the rest is like fine, but the pushing part is like, oh my God. And for me, it was the opposite case. I know that every delivery story and every birth story is different, but for me, the contractions were killing me. But when it came time to do the actual pushing and the delivery, it was actually a beautiful moment. I feel like it brought me and my husband so much closer to each other. he was there on one side, kind of like, you can do this, Eileen. You're strong. I believe in you, and it's gonna be okay. And my midwife on the other side, and the doctor in front of me. And within 4 pushes, she was out, except we never heard her cry. Now, of course, I'm only able to speak about this with strength in my heart and in my mind and in my voice, because it's been more than a year that it happened. And I have grown so much in this past year. I have learned so much, and I feel I have become a completely different person, but hopefully a better one. When they delivered her, they didn't even clean her, which now is one of my most painful memories. You know, when you're going through something, you experience it very differently than when you look back on something. So for me, it was very hurtful that they never cleaned her, they never clothed her. I asked to hold her for a while, and they just gave her to me straight as she was. And I just kept looking at her, squeezing her, hugging her, kissing her. And then it became real, everything that is happening. I was crying nonstop. I think by the next morning, my eyes were like shut from the amount of swelling that my eyes had gone through from all the excessive crying. But my husband was there every single minute, and he kept reminding me that in times of crisis, it matters how we react, and we always have to submit, and we always have to believe. To God we return, to God we belong. And everybody goes through tests and trials, and this is our test, and this is our trial, and this is a scar that we are going to share for life. 2 hours later, after spending time with her, the doctors took her away, and my husband went to bury her. I was, whoever is watching this and is not Muslim, it's common to bury people as soon as they pass away and not wait. And he went, and I was obviously unable to move and unable to go. And at the time, it was still the beginning of COVID, so everything was closed. It was really hard to figure out what exactly to do. But he went for the burial ground, and he sent me a picture, and there were so many babies' graves. And she was another one now among them. And over there, they washed her, they clothed her, and he sent me pictures, and she looked so beautiful. And she just resembled peace. And when he told me that so many people came out of nowhere, because all of this happened within a couple of hours, and so many people came, so many people prayed for her, and that was just the beginning of the blessings that she brought about with her life. Her life, no matter how short it was, has brought about so much goodness, so much love, so much growth, so much unity. Like, I really, for the first time in my life, there's a saying in Islam that if the whole, if one Muslim is hurting, the entire community is hurting. Like, as if, you know, if one part of your body hurts, the entire body hurts. And I really felt that with every bit of my being. I feel like we came together, and all of you were with me, and I just experienced the beauty of belonging to this community. And I am eternally so grateful. If you want to know more about the exact details of the story and how I actually felt at the time, I've written them all down, and I'm going to link the story down below so you can go ahead and read it. I wrote it probably a couple of days after it all happened, so my emotions in those words are very raw. They're full of pain, but they're also very real and in the moment. Now, this video, I want to make it more about hope. I don't want it to be a sad story. I want to celebrate her life, and I also just want to give my 2 cents on how to deal with something like this, because as a community, I feel like we don't know how to deal with this. When something like this happens to you or somebody you know, how do we move on? How do we live? How do we continue? How do we find hope? I get a lot of people messaging me, unfortunately, who have been through the same thing, and they've either never talked to anyone else about it, or they have still not gotten over it after years and years and years, or they have friends or family who have been through this and they don't know how to help them. They don't know what to say. I don't know if what helped with me would help everybody, but for me personally, I'm quite a loner. Like if I'm going through something tough, I like to stick to my own. I don't like to be surrounded by a lot of people, but my friends really could not care less. Like they came to our house every single day, even if I didn't want to see them, even if I didn't want to talk to them. They would take their laptops, they would co-work, you know, behind the dining table. They would speak about their life and their little problems and their jokes. And just day by day, like seeing and sitting with them, and like slowly I started to smile again. Slowly I started to laugh again. It made me feel like, you know, just because my world stopped, the whole world doesn't stop. Life goes on. And it's somehow comforting to see that. Because my friends and my husband, they really didn't know also how to deal with me in the beginning, because a lot of them were like, oh my God, should we hide away everything from the nursery? Should we pack away everything? Maybe it's going to trigger her. Maybe she's not going to heal. And that was one of my husband's biggest fears. Like he looked at me in the hospital and he's like, I'm so scared that you're not going to heal from this. And thank God that we did. And that is not the result of just coincidence. That is the result of a lot of hard work with yourself, with your heart, with your soul, and with your relationship with God, and with you and your spouse. Like this is the time. Do not distance yourself from your husband or your spouse, because you went through this together. Nobody else in the world is going to understand as much as you two. Whatever everybody else is going to try to feel for you or try to say to you, it's you two who went through this. So try to find comfort in each other, because where else are you going to find it from? And I would also really like to stress not to forget about the fathers, because I feel like when we go through loss of children, then a lot of the people always tend to focus mainly on the mother, but it's the father also who lost. So please, if you're unfortunately in this situation, do not forget about the fathers. Also, there were certain triggers that I feel a lot of people have really good intentions when they say these things, but they can come across as really hurtful at the same time. So when people would look at me in this moment of crisis, the people who would either visit me in the hospital, or the people who would message me, or people who would call me, you know, it can be really overwhelming, because suddenly you're surrounded by so much love and so much empathy, but at the same time, you don't want to deal with the outside world. You just don't want to admit that life goes on and the world moves on. So it's a really difficult place to be in. And in that moment, if someone comes to you, first of all, if they're crying and if they are going, you know, out of their way to show how sad they are, it's a really confusing place to be at the same time, because I don't have the capacity or the strength to comfort you. And then there's the other group of people who would tell you, you're still young, you can have another one. So I know, and I'm trying really hard to put myself in the shoes of those people who would say that. But telling someone who just lost their child that it's okay, you can have another one. Yes, inshallah, if God wills, you can have another one, and it will be a huge blessing. But the point of it is not to pretend that it didn't happen. The point of it is not to shove it under the carpet and move on. The point of it is not to try to replace your child with another child. They will never be replaced, and they are unique in their own existence, and they will always be your unique children. You will never want to replace them. So that's something I really recommend not saying to somebody who is grieving, even if you have the best intention. And even, inshallah, God willing, if they become pregnant again, and it does help them in their healing process, but it's not something that is great to say. I just want to share what I think and what was personally beneficial and helpful for me. So the one thing that I really strongly did not like was when people would text me every single day asking, how are you? How do you think I am? You know, I always try to think that everybody's coming from a good place, but the one thing, don't ask me how I'm doing the day after I lost my daughter. Obviously, I'm not doing okay, but I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best to live another day. So I would say the most helpful thing is just to be around. You don't have to try to make it better. There's absolutely nothing in the world that you can say or do that would make it better in that moment. It's gonna hurt, it does hurt, and it needs to hurt for a while. You need to process pain. Pain demands to be felt, and you cannot just ignore it and wipe it away. It's going to take time to heal, but it needs that time. And you think the hardest part is the part when you're in the hospital, but that's not the hardest part. The hardest part is what comes after. In the beginning, everyone's surrounding you, everyone's there for you. You're surrounded by so much love, and I will never, ever, ever, ever be able to, be grateful enough for the support that you guys all around the world showed me. I really do stress on this a lot. I really think that me and Haitham were able to heal how beautifully and how quickly and how strongly we were able to, thanks to the amount of beautiful, heartfelt, sincere prayers you guys sent our way from all around the world. Most of it we will never know about, but I believe that God hears and God healed. So pain and joy and gratitude can somehow all coexist in the same time. It's really confusing, but it's really miraculous. And the one thing I get asked about a lot is, how did you ever know that you would be ready to be pregnant again? And that's a really strange story. I think this is a different story for every woman and every parent who has been through this. But for me and Haitham, the first day in the hospital, we were like, we're parents without a child. I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm a mother, And we told each other, as soon as my body is healed, that we would want to try again. And that's something that you feel because you feel like you're a parent, but you go home empty-handed. But the reality of it was, when we started going for our checkups and when we started healing and when I started healing, mentally, physically, when the mark passed, like at first my doctor told me it would be best to wait at least 3 months because, you need to heal. Like even if your body heals, you need to psychologically heal. And we were like, oh my God, 3 months is such a long time. But then when those 3 months passed, I was like, I'm not ready. I thought I would be ready like the day that I get the clear, but I was not ready for a long time to come. I needed to go through everything I needed to go through. I needed to grow. I needed to learn. There's so many things that God was trying to teach me through this test. And it took me a while to get to know and understand what am I supposed to learn from it. So that brings me to my next point. One of the deciding moments for me was when I received a phone call, and it was this person close to us who was telling me that you are not going to heal until you figure out what is the message that God is trying to send you through this trial. Because things don't happen in life, especially for us as Muslims. We don't believe things happen by coincidence. Everything is destiny. Everything is meant to be. Everything has a reason. Everything has a purpose. And she told me, you need to figure out what is God telling you, because this journey can take you both ways, and that is the scary part. I joined some support groups and I saw with my own eyes that something as devastating as this can take you two ways. It can either make you resentful towards God, God forbid, and save us from that, or it can make you closer to God because you submit and you fully acknowledge that no one else can heal you except the one who created you. But if you go through something so painful, a lot of people go further away from God because they can't understand, why would something like this happen to me? I'm not a bad person. Why is something so terrible happening to me? And that is something I think we need to work really hard to protect ourselves from, never to become ungrateful with God, no matter how much it hurts and no matter what the test is, no matter how much you feel you cannot bear it. If this test was sent to you, God believes that this is something that you can handle, something you can bear, and it has the opportunity and it has the chance to cleanse you, to purify you, to make you a better person, to bring you nearer to God. So when my friends and even Haitham were like, should we pack away the nursery? Should we hide all of the baby's things not to trigger her? Haitham was kind of like, I'm not sure what's the right thing to do because I don't want her to become this person. And then he asked me, he's like, you see, I don't know what's the right thing to do. Your friends are saying this, your family is saying this. I personally feel like this, but whatever makes you feel better. He was really, really, really supportive and comforting for me. And I told him, I don't want to become this person. What do I mean by that? I don't want to become someone who is unable to talk about their child. I want to feel everything I'm supposed to feel and go through the pain and go through the hard work. But one day I want to talk about her with a smile. I want to remember her with happiness, not break down and cry every single time. I want to be able to say her name. I want to be able to celebrate her memory and take it, you know, I want to be hopeful. I want to have joy when I talk about her. I don't want to shy away and pretend something that never happened or something that should have never happened. Especially as people of faith, we should not allow ourselves to go into what could have been or what if, you know, like there's only what is. I've said this so many times. We need to learn to accept destiny and whatever it brings for us, because this life was never meant to be perfect. And I also don't want people to shelter me. So I started feeling like some people are a little bit weary of like having their babies around me or bringing their children around me. And I would never be that person. Like that compartment in my heart that feels sorrow and grief and sadness for my own story and whatever it is that I'm going through has nothing to do with my ability to feel joy for you. Like having gone through this, I would not wish this on anybody else. And of course, I'm happy for you and your joy, but sometimes, you know, the line gets blurred for a lot of people I've seen. In particular, there was this one book that I found helpful after I went through the loss. I started going on Instagram. Now that I learned this term stillbirth, I started searching for hashtag stillbirth, and I came across this person's Instagram, Emma Hansen, and she has written a book about this exact thing because she experienced the same. And at 39 weeks and 6 days, unfortunately, her baby was born still. And she wrote a book about it. And I downloaded the audiobook. And even though it was so hurtful to read it, somehow it was comforting for me to read about somebody's story who has been through the same. Because everybody else who tries to comfort you and talk to you at that time, they will never understand what you're going through. But being able to relate to someone and knowing that there's someone who knows what you're feeling and what you're going through, and especially seeing their life having had moved on. It was so raw, and because I was able to feel everything, you know, I'm like, I know that room that she was taken into now. I know that ultrasound machine they're using right now. I know what she means by this, and I know what she means by that. It was incredibly helpful to relate to someone. But at the same time, there were certain parts in her book where she mentioned that she could not pass a playground anymore, and she would like not be able to pass by a school, and she would not want to see her pregnant friends. And as soon as I read that, I was like, I don't want to become that ever, because that's it is in a way as if I'm questioning God's decree, and as if God doesn't know best what's best for everybody. I don't know how to explain it in a better way, but you feeling like someone else should not have a blessing, or being unable to be in their presence because they have a certain blessing that you want. I feel it's a very fine line between being really discontent with God's decree and destiny. And I think it's a beautiful prayer to include in your everyday prayers for God to help our hearts be content with whatever it is that is sent in our way. Whoever is watching this, whoever is out there in this country, another country, on the other side of the planet, we all have hardships, we all have heartaches, and it's just how we navigate them. And we need to work on our hearts to be able to still remain strong and faithful even when our insides are being ripped apart. It's not something easy. It's something that requires daily effort and lots of prayer. This makes me remember the importance of community. So in the early days, what helped me the most was talking to and being surrounded by women who have been through the same thing. So one helpful resource that is actually practical, I would recommend, there's a website called childrenofjannah.org. They have different resources, different books. I can't show them because I already passed them on to someone else. But they have online support groups. They have psychologists if you feel that that is something that you need. Other than the book Still, and other than Children of Jannah, For me, I found it very therapeutic also to start writing. So when I started writing out my feelings, I started journaling. And when I started sharing my journey with others and connecting to others, that's something that really helped me move forward. Because, you know, when you're in a position to help somebody else, you kind of move away from your heartache for a moment, and that somehow has healing properties in it. So it was really helpful to connect with other people who have been through the same and being able to talk to one another. And also I have this compilation of different quotes that I found really helpful. I'll link them down below. There are different quotes from different people or the Quran that are meant to soothe and calm your heart in times of distress. So they were really immensely helpful. And one more thing I want to say is something that might ease or put your heart in a better place is try to associate goodness to the memory of your lost loved one. So for us, for example, we started using the nursery as a prayer room in the beginning. So slowly, at first it was hard to go in there, but then it started being associated with prayer, or set up a charity in their memory. So, you know, you associate some kind of goodness to their name, or yourself, work on your character, you know, focus on becoming kinder and softer and more tolerant, and do that in their memory. So you feel like you are doing something, that it was a wake-up call for you to actually bring about change, and they are the ones that cause that beautiful change within you. And as Muslims, we believe there are so many sayings in our religion that say that if you've lost a child, you are going to be reunited in heaven. So that is what comforts us, that is what we pray for, and we just try to be the best that we can to hopefully one day be reunited. And it's just a reminder that this life is so fragile. Never think you have it all, or you own it all, or that you know it all. Every tomorrow is unknown. Just try to make the most out of the life that you've been given. If there is one thing that I know for sure, it is that comparison is the thief of joy. Please, if I can ask you for one thing, do not compare yourself to anybody else. Everybody's story, everybody's hardships and trials, everybody's blessings, everybody's livelihood, everybody's story is different. And just the same way, don't compare the timeline of your healing to anybody else's. So just because I was fine in an X amount of time, don't hold yourself, you know, accountable, or feel the pressure that you need to heal just as quickly, or that this should look the same way. Everybody's journey in this life is different. Just please prioritize yourself, and please make sure to get the help that you need. Some people will go about and say, you know, having faith is enough and just be patient. That might not be the case for you. You might need extra help, so please seek for it. If you feel you need to talk to somebody, you need to confide in somebody, do whatever it is that you need to do. If you need to seek professional help, if you need a psychologist, please don't ever think that there's anything wrong with that, and go out and do what is best for yourself, your mental health, your well-being. In our case, we never found out what was the reason for her to pass away. But for example, for a lot of women, the story and the case is that there's an umbilical cord, for example, around the baby's neck. And that is something that is just out of your control. So it's not something you should ever feel guilty about or guilty over, but it also should not prevent you from living, because these things, they're out of our control. We need to have faith and some kind of trust, because otherwise, how can we ever live? How can we ever move on? How can we, you know, step out of the house every single day? Because there's so much that we cannot control. So we have to learn to let go and just do the best that we can, be the best that we can, but ultimately surrender that whatever has to come will come. And our stories are all different and all unique. And as you guys know, I am pregnant again. That is something that I want to talk to you guys about, but definitely in a little bit later in life. Just like it took me some time to talk about this, it will take me some time to process and know exactly what it is that I can tell you about life after loss, because it's beautiful and we are so excited, but it's also really complicated, and the beginning was really mentally difficult for me. But every single day we pray that everything goes well, and I ask that you guys keep us in your prayers too, just like I keep you in my prayers. Whoever is going through hardship right now, I pray for you. If you're struggling to be a parent, I pray for you. If you're struggling with parenthood, I pray for you. If you're someone who cannot relate to anything I said in this entire video, but I'm sure you're going through something of your own, I pray for you. Let's just be kinder and more tolerant and more open, because behind this shell, everybody's going through something. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got something out of it. I hope it helps somebody out there. And thank you guys for always, always, always supporting me through the good and the bad. I really do appreciate you, and I love you. Bye. Salam.